some samples of export options in bidding. First, we're going to start with a basic bid that we have here, where we have a number of line items and categories, and we only have a single section. Now, if we go to our Export tab, and we can minimize our dashboard here, we'll see that we're using the default bid format. There are 3 formats available by default. The bid format, which provides a hierarchical structure for bids. The grid format, which creates a spreadsheet style format for the estimate. And the invoice format, which provides some alternative formatting, but uses a similar style hierarchy structure as the bid format. We can choose our header for the bid PDF. PDF headers are images that have been uploaded to the admin settings. Our section label is the label used as the column header over sections in the exported PDF. Then we have our default group label. Our default group label is applied to any items within the bid estimate that do not have a default group name. Moving on to our sections, here we can see that we're using the estimate tab sorting. What this means is the exported PDF will use the sort order as defined in the estimate. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter too much because we only have one section, but we'll look at some other alternatives there with bids that have additional sections. With similar functionality is the categories area, where we have the option to use our default sorting. The default sorting for categories is derived from the admin section, and we can modify this. Let's say we want to change the sorting order on this bid particularly. I can set this to no, and then I can grab these items and move them around individually. The order that is defined here will be what's exported on the PDF. Now let's look at our PDF structure. First, we have our bid components, and these are each of the different sections that will be exported to the PDF. We have our comments, our overview, our estimate, our statement of work, assumptions, and terms and conditions. Now we can click into here, we can remove all of these items, we could add individual ones, we can go through and add all of them at once. For the purposes of this preview, we'll add all of the items. Once these items have been added to the bid components, you can change the order in which they appear on the bid. To do this, you'll see as you hover over each of the different components that they are highlighted in blue. I can grab one of these components and move it to a different location. This location will correspond to the order of components on the bid PDF. Now we'll briefly step through each component and look at some examples to see how they change the output. First, our comment component includes the option to start on a new page. If we look at a preview of our PDF, we can see that our bid starts with our header image, has bid details, and here are our comments. If we wanted to actually start this section on a new page, we would simply set this value to yes, and our comments would start on a new page in the PDF. This value is true for each of our different components throughout our bid. Moving on to our overview, the overview includes start on a new page, mark items as third-party cost, show section images, show section descriptions, as well as show section notes. Now, mark items as third-party cost adds an indicator for any group that does include items with a third-party cost. The show section images, descriptions, and notes options determines if we are grouping by section, if the images, descriptions, or notes will be included. In this example bid, we are not grouping by section as we only have one section, and we are actually grouping by category. Now we can see that by going down to our grouping field here. I can choose any column from our line items to group by. In addition, in our overview, we can show the group markup, discount, cost, total, profit, or margin. In this case, I am only displaying the group total. If I preview our PDF, I can look in our overview, and I can see that what it is showing me is a subtotal based on my grouping with the total value here. Below our overview, we do have our internal subtotals, third-party cost subtotals, as well as our grand totals. And we have also indicated that some items in this group are a third-party cost. If I show discounts and I preview our PDF, you'll see that now discounts have been included as a column in the overview. Moving on to our estimate, this is a section that includes all of the line items for our bid. Options here include start on a new page, Mark items as a third-party cost. Show grid summary, which is a grid format specific feature, and we'll discuss that as we look at grid examples. Our grouping fields. Now, grouping fields allow you to create a hierarchical structure within the bid estimate. Currently, I'm grouping by category, but I could group by section and category, for example. And if I want to reorder these, right now I'm grouping by category first and then section. I can actually grab this down here and move that up to the top. So now I am grouping by section and then category. And I am also showing the total per section instead of per category. For this example, we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to group by category right now. And then I'll go ahead and show that group total. Other options for grouping are to show section images, descriptions, as well as notes. Moving down, we also have options for our line item columns. We can choose any column from our line item to be displayed in the estimate. Now we can also have the option to show those item values. This comes into play where you're actually showing an item value up here at the total, say for the category. And if I had category down here, maybe I don't want to show that item total. And lastly, we have an option for how our line items are sorted within the estimate. In this case, I am actually sorting by the line item name in an ascending order. Our last few sections here are the statement of work, assumptions, and terms and conditions, which all have options to start on a new page. Now let's look at our full preview of our PDF. So again, we've got our bid header at the top, we have our bid details, and we also have our comments. Moving on to our overview, we have our overview totals, and then we can move down to our estimate. Now within our estimate, and I can move our preview to the side here, you can see our estimate is grouping by category. This is our category: color, finishing, and expenses. Within each of those categories, we see our line items with our line item columns: item number, quantity, unit type, rate, discount, adjusted rate. Now, maybe I don't want to show the item number. I can actually remove that, and I'll remake our preview here. And we can see that the item number has been removed. Now, in addition to updating by clicking on the preview button, I can make changes and just hit the save button to see a live update. So for example, maybe I wanted to remove discount, adjusted rate, unit type, and quantity, and just have a total per line item. I can do that, hit save, and now I can see my preview updated. If I want to add those items back, I simply go back into my columns and click the desired items that I wish to include. And I can see my preview updated accordingly. Now that I added those items second, they appeared after my total. So I'm going to grab my total. I'm going to move that down to the bottom. Click save. Now my total is in the right location. So you can reorder any of those columns as needed for your bid throughout the entire process. Now let's look at some additional examples that include sections and more complex category sorting. For this, I'm going to move up to a different bid. Looking at the estimate for this bid, we can see we have a series of sections, each with items with various categories. Now within our bid, and we can see we've got 10 sections here. We can group by category and see that we actually have 2 different categories here. So let's see how that looks on our export. If I go to our export settings, we are using the bid format, and we do have all of our components included. As we come down, we are grouping by category at the overview level. And on our estimate, we are grouping by category and then by section. Well, let's look at the preview here. So at the top, we can see our overview is grouped by category. We do have totals for each of those categories. And then as we step into our estimate, we can see we have a category, and then we have each of our different sections with their various line items. Now, as you'll note, we are not including section images, descriptions, or notes within the estimate at this point. As we continue scrolling down, we see an additional category for finishing, as well as the line items included there. We have our statement of work, general assumptions, as well as our terms and conditions. Now let's jump up to the bid format again. It's a similar bid with same 10 sections. However, when we look at our export, we are going to be grouping by section, and we're going to include images, descriptions, and notes. We're going to have section totals. And then also within the estimate, we're going to be grouping by section and then category. And right now I'm currently not showing any section totals. So let's look at that preview. So now we have our overview, and our overview does include each of our sections, as well as an image, description, and notes. As I scroll down, we can see our estimate has a top-level section with categories and the individual line items for each category. I can see each of my different sections with their corresponding thumbnails and descriptions, and then obviously our statement of work, general assumptions, and terms and conditions at the end. Now, if I want to include totals within our estimate for our sections, say I want per section cost, I can go ahead and turn that on. And maybe I want our overview to actually look different. Maybe I want to have just our category totals in my overview. So now I'll have section cost in my estimate and category totals in my groups. When I preview this, I now have my categories with my category totals, and I can come down and see my estimate. And I still have my sections, my categories, my line items, and I also have this summary value. The summary value represents the sub cost for this section. I can include multiple subtotals, so I can see per category and per section. I can also add additional items here if I wanted, but in this case, let's just limit it to section and category. I'm going to go ahead and preview this again. I can see now that within my estimate, I've got my section with my section cost, and I also have my per category cost as well. Now let's look at another format, our grid format. I'm going to switch to a different bid that is already set up for a grid format, and I'm going to go ahead and preview this PDF. Now in this case, we do have our overview set to use sections with all the corresponding information. But now our estimate is displayed in a spreadsheet style format. Here we see our thumbnail, our section name, description, quantity, as well as each of the different line items associated with these. Now these line items are aggregate values based off of the section subtotals as determined by the grouping value in the estimate. When you are using a grid format, only the top level grouping will be used. There are no secondary groups when using the grid. Now you'll notice on the previous example, we did not see a per section total. I can include that by selecting show group total. Now when I show our preview here and scroll down, I can actually see a per section total for each of my line items. Additionally, we're only showing quantity at this point in time. I can have additional sub rows within this to show totals per column. For example, if I come down to my estimate, I can see that I have quantity and I am showing the item total for that. My total is being displayed because it is included as a grouping field, but I am not showing the value currently. I can enable that value. I can also add additional fields here. So if I want to add unit type, rate, discount, and adjusted rate, I can include those as well. Now when I preview this and scroll down to our estimate, I can see that each row includes the quantity, total, units, rate, discounts, and adjusted rate. Again, we want to correct the column order here. So I'm going to come down and grab our total, put that at the bottom. In addition to correcting that, we're going to show our grid summary. This is going to add a row at the bottom of our grid to include a total summary for each column. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to hit preview. Now coming back down to our estimate, we see that our rows are in the order that we want them in. And if I come down to the bottom, we'll see that there's a complete summary row showing the totals of each column and the aggregate values within. Now let's look at our invoice format. The invoice format, as mentioned before, is very similar to our bid format with some styling changes. If we look at our preview, we can see that the bid details have a different styling, and also our overview, which is included here, does not include a header to create a more streamlined appearance. This bid example includes our bid details, our comments, the overview, and then just our terms and conditions, as seen here by our bid components. I can include the estimate if we want to see our line items, so I can go ahead and select estimate and add it to the bid components. Now I will have to raise that above our terms and conditions to make sure they're in the proper order, and then I will preview our PDF. Here we can see we have our overview totals for each of our different sections, as well as our estimate breakdown with all of our individual line items. Now the items included on each of these different structures is up to your preference. You can modify the settings as needed to create the desired output for your needs. Now when we've achieved the look that we want, we can go ahead and click Export to PDF. This will download a PDF document matching the PDF preview format. In addition to PDF exports, we do have Excel exports. Excel exports will include 3 sheets, including the details, the line item totals, as well as the individual line items. And we also export to the AICP ABID platform. This exports a template that you can upload directly to the ABID portal. While these are just some examples of bid exports you can create in NIM, there are numerous options and configuration changes you can make to get the desired results that you need. For the full breakdown of all of the options and how to set export defaults, please refer to the NIM documentation, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions by emailing support@nim-labs.com. Thank you.